Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Erik, a teacher with LSAT Demon. Joining me is Stefan, who is a tutor and a writer and does some other behind the scenes stuff for LSAT Demon. And coming on the podcast for the first time, welcome, Stefan.
Happy to be here, man. Full circle moment.
Yeah, you're here to share your success story.
Yep.
And you were a podcast listener and an LSAT Demon, your student before joining the team.
For a
Take me
very
back to the
long time.
beginning. Yeah, so how did you start with LSAT Demon?
Yeah, let's see. So in September of 2023, I'd say I started like actually studying for the LSAT or trying to study for the LSAT. It was in my last semester of undergrad, but I started with another prep company. Don't need to name names, but it was terrible. It was a horrible experience. They had basically a very convoluted way to study the LSAT, a lot of diagramming, a lot of sitting down and taking notes on concepts. And I had like a whole notebook filled of
Mm.
notes that I don't think was useful whatsoever. Pretty much just wasting my time.
Just write a bunch of notes and then never check them
Yeah,
and not really take a
yeah,
lesson away other than just write down some stuff.
exactly, exactly. And I feel like I was accustomed to studying that way or approaching the test that way because that's how you do school. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just do it this way as well. But the LSAT, you don't get good at the LSAT by taking notes. You get good at the LSAT by doing real LSAT questions.
Yeah. Do you remember where you started with diagnostic?
Yeah, so I took my first diagnostic and I think it was a 142.
142. Okay, and that was
Yeah.
with the games back in the day.
Yes, the games.
Was
Rest in
that,
peace.
yeah, when I started, weight games was my weakest. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, I would say games was definitely my weakest because it was just so foreign. Or actually not completely foreign because I did take somewhat of a formal logic class in undergrad. So I remember doing some logic gaminess stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of know what's going on here, but it ended up not being really the same thing.
What did you study in school? If you were
I was
taking
an
a
English,
logic,
yeah,
oh, you
yeah,
English major. Okay.
I was an English major and then I did a philosophy minor. So that's where the logic
Gotcha.
class came in.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So you did that your final semester, and then you graduated and eventually decided, hey, it's
Yes.
time to look for some other way of doing this LSAT.
100%. Yeah. I would say my last semester, I'm super into podcasts, and I feel like that's one of the main places I go to if I'm interested in a topic or want to learn more. So I just told myself there has to be a podcast on LSAT. Like, there's got to be, right? So I did, and lo and behold, LSAT Demon Daily, thinking LSAT, started listening to those pretty religiously. And the more and more I listened, I was like, wow, this seems so much easier, and this makes so much more sense than whatever the hell I'm learning at this company. So then I graduated and was like, okay, time to take Dallas at studying serious. And I made the switch to the Demon. So that would have been in January 2023.
January 2023, and you were, did you notice an immediate improvement to your approach, or did it feel more enjoyable, feel better right away?
I think from the get go, because I was so already heavily indulged into the podcast and I was always hearing the advice, accuracy over speed and don't finish sections and stuff like that. I just immediately adopted that mindset. It wasn't even a question. I kind of just was like, all right, this is what they're telling me to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I don't think it was automatically this like skyrocket score increase
Hmm.
because, when I first started, I was only attempting, I mean, one game and a half, two games, and then, LR and RC, 10 questions, 12 questions in the beginning because I was prioritizing accuracy over speed.
But you didn't find that to be difficult to make that jump. You just kind of bought in
No,
right away.
no, I just bought it right away. It made sense to me. It just makes sense because, the easier questions are in the beginning. So you might as well rack up points there. And, as you build your foundation, as you get better at the test and better at those questions, the speed will come and then you'll slowly start leveling up and getting to the more difficult ones. It was just like, it just makes sense to not throw yourself in the fire. Like, why am I going to go on and attempt question 25 when I'm not even good at question five?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you from live classes, and you were
Oh, yeah.
one of the great students who actually went camera on. You asked
Yep.
questions, you participated, could just tell that you had the right attitude and you were looking to improve and really draw something from every class that
Mm.
you attended. So, talk to me about your balance of study, like your approach to going to live classes, but then
Sure.
also leaving time for your own study. You're clearly doing a lot. But what did your like what did like a week of LSAT study look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. I kept it pretty simple and didn't try to over engineer anything. When I first started with the Demon, I did do the live plan right from the get go. And especially in the first month or first however many months I did it, I was trying to do probably one class a day, maybe one class every other day. And then everything in between was either taking a section and reviewing the section or drilling.
Hmm.
Pretty much you just fill in the gaps with one of those two options. I will say though, and we'll probably get into this, but one of the mistakes I made early on in my studies was trying to take full practice test right from the beginning. So I guess the way my week would look like is I tried to do, let's say, a section Monday, a section Wednesday, or maybe another section Thursday, and then let's say the days in between, filling that in with classes and drilling. And then on Saturday, I'd sit down and do a full PT.
Hmm.
But that was a lot. That was a lot, especially right from the beginning, and especially the way I was trying to review my practice test. I was prioritizing accuracy over speed. So I was by no means finishing the sections. But after I would finish the test, for some strange reason, I'd go on and try to attempt the questions I didn't get to. And that was just making the review process
Mm.
so daunting
Hmm.
because again, I was in the beginning. I was a beginner LSAT student, and I was going on to try to do like passage 4 and question 25 and 26. And again, it was untimed,
Hmm.
so it wasn't as difficult with the time constraint, but it just made the whole process really daunting.
Yeah, would you do that before reviewing the mistakes that you made?
No, I would review the mistakes I made first, and then I go on
Gotcha.
to just do all the unattempted questions.
Yeah.
But looking back, I probably would have I would have went about that a different way.
Yeah, what would you have done differently?
I think I would have just focused on all the questions that I actually spent time doing and kind of just left the ones I didn't get to, especially early on, when I was in the 140s, maybe lower 150s. I
Hmm.
just leave those for drilling or, end up coming around to the section another time.
That's good. I think that's good perspective that you have. I don't hate the idea of doing those
Yeah,
questions as drilling questions. If you didn't get to the last
100%.
10 set questions of an LR section, those are still good questions that you can learn from and attempt. But
100%.
I guess your
100%.
point is that those were probably level fours and level fives. And if you were to
Yeah,
hit drill, the demon was probably going to give you level twos and level threes at that point.
exactly.
So,
Precisely.
yeah.
Precisely. And it wasn't even, when I had 10 left in a section that I didn't get to. This is when I had like 20 left in a section
Right.
that I didn't get to, right? So I have 4 sections staring at me with, 20 questions in each of those sections that I'm going to go and try to tackle. And it just wasn't fun.
Yeah. Yeah, better to focus on maybe doing just individual time sections and
Yeah,
drilling to get
100%.
started. Yeah,
100%.
and then maybe sprinkle in some full practice tests when you
For
start to
sure.
improve a little bit and yeah.
For sure. For sure. 100%. I think practice tests are valuable in the sense of getting to a point where they're not daunting or where you're not giving them too much respect. Getting to the point of this is just 4 sections that I'm going to do together, one at a time.
Hmm. Did you ever do one-on-one tutoring?
I did not. I did not. So I did the live plan, and then I downgraded to the premium, and then did a lot of solo studying for a couple of months, and then that's when my study buddies came in, and that's when stuff got fun.
Tell me about your study buddies. I think I know at least
Yeah,
one of them, another
yeah,
LSAT Demon team
100%.
member. But yeah, tell me about your
Yes.
study buddies and how that helped you.
Yeah, so let's see. The study buddies probably came around at first. It was actually in a live class. The first study buddy, he reached out to me, said, we should do some sections together and review. I was like, awesome, let's do it. And we kind of just hit the ground running from there. That would have been maybe in the fall of, or the back end of December of 2023.
Hmm.
And then we were studying together, and we just kept it super simple. Basically, do a section on our own time, show up, review the section together. And we were doing that, a couple times a week. And then we added another study buddy to the group, and she was actually scoring a little bit lower than us. She was kind of like lower 160s, mid 160s, when we were kind of in the upper 160s, lower 170s. And that was extremely valuable because now we had to go back and really rethink our process and teach it to her. And once we started doing that, and we all took off like rocket ships. She caught up to us super, super fast. And then we just kept on going, low 170s, mid 170s, high 170s. And studying became really fun because there was no second thought to it. It was just like, okay, I'm going to sit down, do my section. And when you're already scoring that high, you miss one or two questions and you show up and you're just laughing about it because it's only one or two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes nobody would get anything wrong. That'd be pretty cool for a section. And it's like, all right, cool. We're just hanging out at this point.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, and we talk about that a lot. I think listeners of this podcast will recognize that lesson. Many people have said it, that
Yeah.
finding a study buddy or doing something where you can teach the LSAT or teach the questions that you struggled with to other people, you got to be damn sure what you're talking about. You
Yeah.
really have to
100%.
know your stuff in order to explain it
Yeah.
to somebody else. Same thing with writing, with doing Ask Button stuff. Were you an
hmm
Ask Button respondent while you were still studying?
Yeah. Yeah. I joined the AS team probably in the last 2 months of my study.
Cool.
Yeah.
With your study buddies too, you obviously get the benefit of some really smart people that you get to improve at the
Yeah.
LSAT with, but
Yeah.
you also get encouragement, right? You're there cheering each other on and
Yeah. Yeah.
comforting
It's
each
such a
other
fun
after you've had
experience.
a tough day. So sounds
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that really is a help.
Yeah. I would say the LSAT, and especially for somebody like me, and I imagine a lot of students studying the LSAT, I think this field, the field of law, is highly saturated with high achievers, overachievers, and the numbers can take an emotional toll on you. So when you do a section and maybe it's just not your day, and all of a sudden you score a -7, and you start questioning the very essence of your existence, and you show up to the study group and they're just like, "Man, like you got a -2 the other day. You're just having a bad day. Let's go through this. Just walk it off. It's not. You're good at the LSAT. Trust that you're good at the LSAT." And
Hmm.
sometimes it's really valuable just to hear that from somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it's also not just some podcast that's telling it to you, but someone who you trust, someone
Yeah,
who is really going through the process with
yeah,
you, who
yeah,
knows the feeling, who can
yeah,
reassure you. That's important. Are they
100%.
still, so I think I know, but are all of is your whole study group done with the LSAT and through doing the
Yeah,
applications
yeah,
now?
yeah. We're all done. Me and my one study buddy, we actually ended up getting the same official score, so that was kind of
Nice.
cool. And then our other study buddy, she's over there in Canada, and she killed the LSAT too, so she's gonna have really great outcomes. So yeah, we're all done, kind of just in the waiting period.
Awesome. Well, let's get back to your journey. So you joined the Demon in
Yeah.
2023.
Yep.
Talk about your growth from there and when you started taking official tests and from your,
Yeah.
what'd you say, 142 diagnostic.
Yeah. 142.
Yeah, when did you get to a point where you felt it was time to sit for an official test?
Yeah. Funny thing, Eric, it's actually when you told me to.
Is that right?
No, not yeah,
I remember
not
having some
entire.
of those
Yeah.
conversations after
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
I think you hung out
100%.
after the
Yeah.
live class once or twice and we
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about
We
how
definitely
things were
did.
going.
Yeah, I would say once they announced that logic games were going away, my heart kind of fell to my stomach because I was scoring perfectly. And also, one thing that I should have mentioned is my study journey was also super, super uh, logic game focused. I
Mm.
mean, I was doing at a minimum one section a day. When I got good, maybe even two sections a day. And I went through all the games at least twice, and I was making my third way around, just to put that out there, because now that
Yep.
they're gone, we don't really think about them, and I don't really think about how much of an integral part they were to my LSAT journey, but huge part of my journey. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, so they announced the games were going away, and I think I was pretty consistently in the lower 170s, and that wasn't the score that I was shooting for. But considering that it was January and I wanted to submit my applications, as close to opening day as I could. So let's call it September 1st. There would be 5 test administrations from January leading up to September. So I decided to show up, did not perform well. I think a bit of test day jitters, test day anxiety, scored below my range. And then I actually took every single official administration all the way up to August. So I took February, scored below my range, and we can get into the details of why later on. Took April. That one felt really good. That's when I got the official 171, and I was happy. But that obviously was not my end goal. I was shooting for higher. So took June, and June is where things got interesting because June actually led to a retest attempt.
Mm.
So basically, what happened was I was doing my reading comprehension section, and then the proctor unmuted themselves. So whatever noises that was in the room that they were in
Yeah.
started coming through my speakers, and I hopped into the chat, asked them politely to hey, mute yourselves, whatnot, and it led to like 1 2 minute 3 minute sort of fun time to say the least.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you lost some time and you were thrown out of you're distracted. So,
yeah, and especially when because I think that was my last section, so I knew that this RC was counting for sure.
uh,
I was like, oh man, like no, this is the one
yeah.
that's actually going to be counted. This isn't the experimental.
Yeah. But you got the
Yeah.
retake and then
Yes, I
what
got the
happened there?
retake. I wish I could tell you that it went better, but surprisingly, the exact same thing happened on
Oh.
my RC section. Uh, they unmuted themselves probably by accident. It was the same thing. This time, I was probably a little less polite in the chat. I was more demanding, like, "Hey, please turn off your mic,"
Hmm.
and whatnot. But I don't know. It didn't end up being too big of a deal because I just got a 171 again.
Hmm.
So it was all right. And I don't want to scare any listeners. I had that experience that I went through was super, super rare. I mean,
Yeah.
all the other test attempts I took, the 3 other ones, so smooth, no interruptions whatsoever. And I think that's indicative of everybody that takes, or the large population that takes the test online.
Totally. Double down on that 171, then
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
you're
double
sitting.
that.
Are you satisfied with that score? You mentioned that you kind of hoped it would be a little bit higher.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that I have no regrets. I mean, I definitely gave it my all, gave it my 100%, and gave everything, did my best. But it was not the score that I was looking for. I was
Mm.
hoping to, get like a 175 plus because that's really what my practice tests. Well, that's what my practice tests were indicating. I
Hmm.
was scoring the high 170s, and that's what I wanted. But when it came to test day, something about test day, I'd like to say that I fully embody the demon approach, but I definitely gave the official test too much respect.
Yeah, what does that look like? Because it clearly, you mentioned it earlier that you
Mm-hmm.
underperformed and you seems
Yeah,
like you have thought about it.
yeah,
What you mentioned giving the test too much respect. Like, what do you think you did on test day? Was it just a mindset thing? Like you were
yeah,
nervous
definitely.
because you were hyping
Yeah,
it up too much?
yeah, 100%. Definitely hyping up the test too much, giving it too much power. And then what that looked like while actually taking the test
Mm.
was probably second guessing myself on some of the earlier questions that I usually brush off in my practice test, and either going too fast, going too slow. It was just I didn't play like I practiced, to say the least. And I think that comes through a lot of different factors, a little bit of imposter syndrome, a little bit of, confidence and mentality. I feel like I wasn't somebody that typically did well on standardized tests, and something about feeling that this was in my reach, or like or feeling that I was actually good at this test
Mm.
was something that I'd struggle to accept at
Even
times.
when the scores showed that you were
Yeah,
good, when your practice test
yeah,
scores and when your
yeah,
study buddies were telling you, dude, you're good at
yeah,
this
yeah,
test, you still had that feeling
yeah.
that maybe I'm not. Hmm.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. It was genuine imposter syndrome. Like whenever I'd get a win, something in my head would try to minimize that win. Oh, you've seen that question before, or like just coming up with little things like that. And that's a personal
Hmm.
issue that, I had to deal with and still deal with, but it is very real, and I'm human at the end of the day. And that's something that, I expect a lot of students go through.
Yeah, why do you think that is? It's super common. Like
Yeah,
why
yeah.
do you think we do that to ourselves?
Man,
It's so nonsensical.
right? Yeah, very.
I guess it's tied to some kind of inner anxiety, but I don't know,
Yeah, I would
why do
say
we do that to ourselves?
I think about it a lot. So I have a pretty good answer. I think throughout the course of, just going through K through 12 years, I was always a super good student and a super high achieving student, but I always felt like I had to put in like 10 times amount of the effort to do as well as like the top students.
Hmm.
And I think my friends would see that too. And I was, and again, like not throwing any shade, like all love to everybody, but I would hear this phrase all the time, like, you're not smart, you just work really hard. And I think a lot of people get told that, to be honest, right? And that's what kind of probably roots this imposter syndrome of this isn't actually, indicative of my intelligence. This is just because I work really hard and put in a lot of hours, which is also true. But those two ideas can also coexist.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's this problem of like being a type A person. And sometimes type A people have to learn how to be a little bit more type B. And this one podcast I listened to, Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if you've heard of it, but he talks about this, right? It's like, everybody loves the underdog story. Everybody loves Rocky, the montage of, somebody that's trying to put in the work and, have that success story, but,
Yeah,
needs a
punching the
little
side
kick.
of meat in the freezer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But needs the little kick in the butt of like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, actually put in the work, stop being a lazy bum. And, like everybody loves that story, but what other people don't think about is like the type A person that, no matter how good they do or, you know, what achievements they accomplish, they always find a way to kind of belittle or size down those accomplishments. And sometimes they just gotta like relax and, just accept like, hey, what you did today was enough. You progressed. And I'm not saying I felt that way all the time, but definitely, one of the biggest struggles throughout the entire LSAT journey was giving myself a pat on the back when I should have. And I think that's what led into a little bit of the test day performance as well. Because if you're not talking to yourself nicely, to put it simply, then you're always constantly battling with having true, genuine confidence.
Hmm.
And that will reflect on test day. You got to be sure of yourself and you got to accept that you're actually good at this test. But, when you're always having those back and forth conversations, something like that might be hard to do.
Yeah. We're both athletes. We deal with that in our training as well, huh?
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's like you can accomplish, you can do 3 different workouts, 4 different workouts a day, and you can PR. But at the end of the day, you're always questioning yourself, like, could have I gone a little bit further there? Could have I gave a little bit more? And it's just this battle of never feeling like what you did was enough, right?
Hmm. I
Yeah.
think it's better for me when I focus on process. Like
Sure.
when you focus on end goal or when you focus on the quantitative outcome, like for me as a runner, when I if I focus entirely on the time in which I finish a race.
Yeah.
For the LSAT, that would be what score did you get?
Hmm.
That's where it can be really easy to have those feelings of self-doubt and anxiety and imposter syndrome pop up because you're tying your satisfaction and your feeling of self-worth to some external motivator.
Exactly.
And it's a lot, I don't know, it feels a lot better when if you can just appreciate the process and enjoy the process of that random Tuesday afternoon run where you're not
Yeah.
setting a PR in the 5K,
Yeah.
but
100%.
you're just stacking a brick in the wall that's gonna lead you to your race. Or with on some random day of LSAT study, I'm not setting a new PT high score today, but I am putting in the work and I'm enjoying solving this logic game, or I'm getting some. I'm laughing at this bad argument, and it's fun to break down this argument and to
Yeah,
feel like I've accomplished one small thing today. Yeah.
100%, 100%.
But it's tough.
And
And even when you do it
yeah,
in
it's
practice,
tough.
those demons can pop up on race
Yeah,
day or on test day. So
yeah, it
it's
is, and
something to
it's
always be on
something
guard
that,
for.
yeah. But I think it's just I'm okay with talking about it because it's good to be cognizant of it and good to have that introspection and awareness because there are ways to combat those feelings. But I just think it's something like you said, it's always going to be a part of who that person is. If
Mm.
they're a high achiever, they're never going to feel like what they did in that day is enough. But you can find a happy medium,
Does
and
it have anything to
hopefully.
do with the competition with others, comparing yourself to other people?
Oh, big time, 100%, 100%. I feel like I've always been comparing myself to kind of the people that, like I said, growing up would always do super, super well in school. And it would kind of just, I'm not saying that this was the case, but it just feel like it kind of just came to them, just clicked for them naturally. They weren't necessarily, it didn't seem like they were putting, the X amount of hours that I was putting in. So it was
Yeah.
always like, yeah, Stefan, you did great, but how much more effort did you do compared to that person? And yeah, it's a mental battle. It's a mental battle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one, especially nowadays. I'm not on social media really, but
Sure.
we see everybody's best day on social media,
Oh,
right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
you see them, you see someone posting on social media looking great, looking like, they've achieved nirvana and physical
Hmm.
beauty all at the same time,
Right.
but you don't see all the crappy days behind the scenes. So it's easy
Exactly.
to have that feeling like, oh, look at what they've accomplished
Hmm.
without any work because they're not showing you the work because you
Exactly.
haven't seen the work.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a tough one. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we figure it out in time for law school because the work only ramps
Hopefully,
up and the
Eric.
competition gets
Yeah.
worse. So
Hopefully.
if you figure out the way to solve all of that, let me know
Yes.
and it would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna need to. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks for getting deep and philosophical in
Yeah,
this
sorry.
conversation.
In my bio, I referred to my LSAT journey as a philosophical experience because it really was for me. You know,
Yeah.
every single LSAT question that you get or miss, every high PT, every lower PT that's on the lower end of your range, you gotta you gotta find your way to separate yourself from the result and just ground yourself in the growth mindset and in the process and in the journey.
It's a great place to end it. Unless you
Yeah.
have anything else that you want to say, I think I love that conversation. But is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to get on record,
Hmm.
share
Um,
with people who are on their own
yes.
LSAT journeys now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say if you're doing this, give it your all. It doesn't make sense to do this and to go on this journey and not give it your all. And again, that's kind of like, the battle of the type B and type A. But if you're here, you might as well try to do your absolute best. And everybody's situations and everybody's life experience is different. And I'm not saying that everybody has to shoot for a 180. Everybody has different goals, but do try to do your absolute best on this test because it will give you reciprocal benefits, I believe, for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
And those reciprocal benefits are going to come automatically, whether it's directly, in your law school experience and then in the job outcomes. And then just you're going to become a better critical thinker and a more well-rounded person the better you get at this test. I think that's huge. And another thing I'd say is have complete conviction in yourself. I know we just went on this, long spiel about how I'd struggle to believe in myself, but I feel like at the end of the day, I always knew I would get there. I'd cross that finish line. And, we talked a little bit about growing up and the struggles of that. But I feel like one thing that I always had was I always knew that I was going to get the job done. And I fully believed in myself. And if you do that, truly think that success is inevitable in this test.
Stefan, thank you so much for coming on. This was a real pleasure.
Absolutely.
You
Appreciate it.
should be super proud of that 171, especially given your journey from that 142. That is a huge and really impressive accomplishment. And yeah, I predict great things for you in your
I appreciate it.
applications.
Right back at you.
Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.